just say that UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, our mandate, as you said, Dr. Aisha, is really about helping women first and foremost. In my case, all Somali women. So if the Somali women succeed, I succeed. Basically, that is my role, and that is how I also frame my own leadership style, and I'll come back to that. In Somalia, we have actually further developed the concept of the 3 zeros. We call it 4 zeros. We call it 0 maternal mortality, 0 unmet need for family planning, and 0 GBV. But we have also added the quest for 0 FGM. We don't want a single girl to be cut in Somalia. We think that about 200,000 girls might be cut in 2020. And actually, because of the COVID-19, we have seen that girls out of school and the campaigns to knock on doors and actually promote this practice is something that has been ongoing. So let me come back to the we can come back to our work and what we try to do in Somalia to really make a difference. I think leadership is about making a difference. That's how I approach my own role. But it's funny when you say, what is leadership within the UN? I must say that is, I don't even think you realize how challenging that question is when you pose it. Because the United Nations, unfortunately, is a big, messy organization with people from all walks of life. It's very politicized. When people have a position in the United Nations, they may not necessarily get it because of merit. I mean, we say that, but I can say that in this forum that it's not always based on merit. It might be based on racial factors. It might be based on mostly political factors who are contributing to the UN, or if you are maybe from the South, you might be part of a political elite and you get pushed into a position, right? So let's be honest about that. I have no problem sort of disguising that and taking the veil off the UN to be able to give something to the audience here. So what is leadership? Leadership is obviously, has been said, it's not about a leadership position, right? But when people talk about the United Nations, it's often about, oh, how can I get one of those positions, right? And that is politicized and that is messy. And that's not what leadership should be about. And that was established by Ruth. It was established by Eric. So I can say that in my approach to leadership in Somalia, where I work now, I previously worked in Palestine, I worked in India, in other contexts, that I really approach leadership in the same way, no matter where I am. I mean, a lot of people always ask me, so how is it being leader in Somalia? And I say, what do you mean? As if it's different than anywhere else. At the end of the day, most people have the same set of ambitions. They want to be fulfilled, they want to feel belonging, and they want to succeed. So when I am a leader and I have this position, it's not because of the position. It is that my role, my practice is to make sure that those things are fulfilled for the people that are within my team and for the people that we serve as a team. So in Somalia, we have about 80 colleagues on the team. I want each of them to become a leader. A leader on going to communities to talk about how can we abandon FGM. A leader to go and talk to politicians or people in the ministry. How can we make sure that when we talk sexual reproductive rights, that something as simple as a woman coming into a hospital in Banadir wanting a C-section to save her life can actually get it without male consent? Because that is the circumstance right now. that she can only get it with male consent. And often they come in, the doctor will try to call the husband on the phone. Maybe they didn't get credits on the phone, they can't be reached for whatever reason. And guess what? The woman dies. So when we talk about these rights issues, it's very, very basic, right? So with my team, I tell everyone, everyone is special, everyone has a role. Of course, they have to want to do the job. So I become an enabler, and when I talk about leading my team, I do it by invitation. I came up, I don't know if I came up with this concept before the talk, leadership by invitation. I invite everyone to become a success in their own right, so they can show leadership with the partners, show leadership with the community. I want to help them, I want to mentor them, and I want to make sure that they feel that they can provide that service to others. And that is not easy. It takes hard work, it takes practice, it takes changing habits where you show empathy, where you are listening, where you put others before yourself, and that's not easy. That's not easy. Some of you, many, I think millennials are looking at leadership literature right now, and probably know Simon Sinek, who is one of the foremost thinkers on leadership, and he has written a book that real leaders eat last. And that was something coined from a context where if there's not enough food in the team, literally you provide for your team and you eat last. It also means that if you have to, if there is a situation where everyone has something else to do, but something has to be done, even it's a mundane piece of work, driving a car to somewhere, getting someone enabled to do something. You as the leader, you also have to play that role. You have to do that. You have to eat last. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not practicing leadership. I'm not saying that you can't change your habits, but you need to then change your habits. And the way I got into this, someone was saying, I think it was Eric, the best advice of this whole seminar is get a good mentor. Get a good mentor. A lot of people think, oh, I want to work for organization X or company X, and this is, or hospital X, and that's going to be what is going to make my career. You need to choose your leader. Choose the person you want to work for. I know many human resources systems don't allow that because you have to apply and go through different processes, etc. And you never know necessarily who your leader will be. But if you can choose your leader because it's going to be much more important than the company you work for. Because many of these big establishments, they take the young people and they wring out all the juice out of them a couple of years. A lot of people have almost like post-traumatic syndrome after working in some of these very high competitive organizations after some years, and they sort of give up. And all the bad habits of these exploitative practices, which happens across the board, then you internalize it and you perpetuate and you become a terrible leader yourself, right? So avoid that. I've had the fortune in the United Nations of having a boss who wanted me to succeed and who was really mentoring me. But later in my career, I also met my worst nightmare. I had a boss for a couple of years. I can unfortunately not disclose here the circumstances around it, right? But who was really, really antagonizing me, who was really trying to push me out and sort of kill me professionally. And it took me a while to recover from that. But it did teach me one thing: the person not to be. And having that yin yang of the good boss and the bad boss, maybe you could write a book about the good boss and the bad boss. It would probably be a bestseller somehow, right? But that yin yang really helped me form my own leadership style. So I'm not sure I can help the listeners or the young people how to get that leadership position in the UN. Apply if you're doing good work. You start as a UNV, UN volunteer. It's actually a paid position, and they're trying to really get a lot of new talent in. But if you come into the United Nations and work in the United Nations, at least practice good leadership, exercise good leadership. Don't be that bad leader. And before the seminar, I was sort of going back over notes of leadership from my past history. There's a company in Denmark. I'm from Denmark. It just happens to be there from Denmark. It's called Devoteam. It's a consulting company. Could be any other company. It's not a big company. They maybe have 80, 100 people. But every year, the employees are asked to, by vote, choose who should be the leader. Can you imagine? So you're chosen to be the leader. Now, in the United Nations, it's a very hierarchical system. You know, you're called youth officer, for example, or program officer. I mean, we have this nomenclature from it's so outdated, you know, from the military, right? But what I hope and what I strive to every day is that approach it, and I even say to the to other leaders on my team. I'm a leader of leaders, right? I say you have to work in a way with your team that they would want to vote for you, like in this example of the consulting company Devoteam. You may have gotten a position which gives you certain entitlements and certain power, as it were, but you have to treat all your subordinates in such a way that they, if they came to a vote, which of course doesn't happen in the UN, but if it did, that they would want to vote for you. And that's also how I approach my own work with my own team. So if all of these people are enabled, if they all feel that I am there to make them succeed, guess what? They will do like Ruth said, they will pay it forward. They will pay it forward to the community. And that is how we can actually change the world together. And that's how I approach leadership in the United Nations. So there was the third question, how do you use your difference to your advantage? I think that is perhaps the difference that I have to offer, and I hope it will soon be normalized. Thank you, Aisha.
One of the questions that we actually have also here from our audience is, when it comes to, for instance, working in a highly political and politicized system, especially within the UN, when it comes to Somalia, how do you, as an individual, maintain your innovative, your innovation, your creativeness, your ability to be bold about certain aspects? How do you maintain that when you know you are in a fairly rigid system?
It's a very good question. I think you have to give room for people to pursue their own ideas. And again, this is leadership by invitation. If I see someone has a good idea and they believe in it, it is my role to see that they can succeed with it. We've had examples of people where I didn't know where it was going to go. I have to be able to afford taking that risk and say, look, it doesn't matter if it fails. You know, if it fails, then try again. Another analogy from sort of the venture capitalist, you know, I mean, it's not that I'm having venture capitalism here, but there's a mindset there. If you're George Soros or some of these that invest in companies, right? The two things, I read a book about this thing. And they say, okay, I invest in 10 companies, 10 ideas, basically. If two of them succeed, I'm happy, because usually these are ideas that will change lives. So it doesn't matter whether it fails. And that is a philosophy I'm trying to apply. Now, the UN is very risk adverse as a system, so it's not always easy. But at an individual level with people, you have to give room for people to fail and to try to pursue their own ideas and try to support them and guide them in getting there. So that is at least one way that it can be done. But it has to be enabled again from the top.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Anders. Another question that we have as well is when you go about applying for leadership roles, such as yours or others within the organization, especially in Somalia, is there a level of experience you need before you can relocate to another country? What would you advise? Because there's many Somali students here that aspire to go back home to build and to invest their skills back home. What kind of level do they need to be at before they can make such a decision, would you say?
I think one of the things I want to say is that first and foremost, coming to Somalia is really such an amazing thing because you have, I've never seen, I've been in Palestine, I've been in India, I've been many places, South America. I've never seen a place where people are coming back the way I see Somalis to build their country. Okay. Let's not forget that it is also something that can be source of conflict sometimes. Some people, they say, oh, these diaspora coming back, we stayed here during the hard times, etc. Right? So keep that in mind is one advice for diaspora coming back. But if you come with the mindset that you want to be an enabler and you want people locally to succeed, you will succeed. But because you come, and we have been talking about privilege as well, if you come as a diaspora, and because now you have gotten a better education, you speak languages, etc., and you have an edge, some people call it a privilege, right? But you have a privilege. Don't exploit that privilege. You will not succeed, I don't think. So I don't think necessarily it's about degrees or diplomas. I think it's about how you approach going back, rebuilding Somalia.
Absolutely. And just following on from that, especially when it comes to, it's not always about having a certain academic background. A lot of individuals bring, a lot of individuals bring leadership simply through experience. Now, but then when it comes to that, these individuals often do experience things such as imposter syndrome. How would you say, for instance, I know your background is right now is in international development, it's in business. However, you're working at the UNFPA. How, if someone comes from a different background to what they're working in, how would they deal with things such as imposter syndrome?
Such as imposter? Sorry.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's of course the funny thing is that when you're part of an organization, whether it's an academic organization, whether it's a Somali academics, or if it's a UNFP or UN, everyone wants to feel that they belong to something, right?
Yeah.
And if you are that, you know how it is in an office. There is always someone who makes everyone feel good around the water cooler. It may not be the boss, but you know who I'm talking about, right? In every office, be that person, and it will happen.
Oh, thank you very much, Anders.
Make them feel that they are a success. That's what you can do, and show that leadership. Practice it, not by position, but by practice.
Okay. Actually, we have time for one more last question, Anders. And that question is, do you think that the selection of leadership within the UN will change in the future?
Oh, that is also another very deep question, because I really hope so, right? I mean, it's a very complicated thing. What Antonio Gutierrez is doing right now, he's trying to really make sure that we have gender equity, right? Which I really applaud him for. And it makes it hard for people like myself, because I'm at a wave where you know, people like me had privilege for a long time, but now we have to pass on, we have to pay it forward to others, right? So I respect that, but and also you have so many nations who are whether it's donor countries or countries where it's a political lead, you get people in who may not be getting the job because what they practice and what they stand for, but because of the connections they have. It is happening, but I also see, I also know why it is happening. But I truly hope, Dr. Aisha, that it will change in some way, and that we find a way to change that, because it's actually one of the blemishes on the United Nations. And I think that a lot of young people maybe listening out there might be discouraged from even trying to get in. But I would say, don't give up. Start as a UNV, UN International Volunteer is a very good place to start. It's a program, you're paid, you're basically put in a mentorship, and it's a very good way to start. And you can start at any age, any level, but it is a platform to get in and find a way to serve people and contribute to the United Nations the way it was supposed to be.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Anders. Thank you for joining us. And like, your message resonates with all of us, and especially when it comes to be what leader not to be. That's a personal point that I will always also take away.